A late autumn evening hung heavily over the deserted university park. Galia, shivering and wrapped in her worn-out coat, hurried home. She had stayed late in the student library preparing for her colloquium, and now she cursed herself for not having enough time to get her chores done. On top of that, her father would be worried about her. The solitary streetlights cast a dim glow over the cobblestone paths, making the shadows unnaturally long and ominous. She wanted nothing more than to reach home as quickly as possible. Suddenly, from the dimness of the trees, the drunken laughter and loud voices of a group reached her ears. She flinched and quickened her pace. Out of the darkness, a group of slightly tipsy students emerged right in front of her. Under the glow of the nearest street lamp, Galia recognized them. They were the rich kids from her course. Arrogant and spoiled, leading the group, swaying slightly, was Stas, the most brazen and detestable person to her, who, as rumors went, only managed to stay at university due to his father's money and influence. The mutual dislike was palpable. From the very first days of their studies, he had singled her out as a target, never missing an opportunity to humiliate her publicly. Upon spotting her, he froze in a dramatic pose, recognizing his classmate, and deliberately shouted out to draw the attention of his friends. "Look, the library mouse is dragging her old papers to dinner." He pointed at her bag of notes and burst into laughter. His vile chuckle was immediately picked up by his cronies. "Have you ever seen anything in your life besides your books, four-eyed pauper?" The guys snickered, surrounding Galia from all sides. The young woman glanced around in fear, feeling as though she were trapped. Stas approached. His breath hit her face, reeking of alcohol. "You don't even look like a normal girl," he sneered. "You'll die a virgin with your textbooks." He turned to his friends. "How about we teach this little mouse how to kiss? What do you think, guys?" He leaned in, puckering his lips and making an obnoxious buzzing noise. Galia froze in terror. The laughter around her turned into a repulsive hum. Unable to bear it any longer, she desperately covered her face. "What are you so shy about?" she heard right next to her ear. The buzzing from the others intensified, accompanied by smacking sounds mimicking passionate kisses. Hands grabbed at her wrist, trying to pull her palms away from her face. In the midst of this nauseating mockery, a loud, commanding voice cut through the air. "Stas, what is this?" the voice thundered. "You promised to be home. I was counting on you." The drunken laughter abruptly stopped. She was released. Galia cautiously opened her eyes and peeked through her fingers. A solid, well-built man stepped into the circle of light under the street lamp. He looked stern and utterly displeased. His gaze, filled with cold disapproval, swept over the stunned group of youths. Galia had the feeling that the man immediately understood everything. His eyes lingered on her, then moved to Stas. Addressing the young man, whose twisted smile had disappeared, he ordered in a commanding tone that left no room for argument. "Get home now. You, Stas, with me. And you, young lady, too." He turned on his heel and strode decisively down the path. Stas shot a confused glance at his friends and trudged after his father. Galia, still trembling from the ordeal, followed them, casting a fearful look at the quietly snickering group. The leaves rustled beneath their feet as they walked in silence through the empty park toward the parking lot. Stopping in front of a large, imposing black car parked in the university lot, the man opened the rear door. "Get in, you fool." Once the young man climbed into the car, the man slammed the door shut and turned to Galia. "You sit in the front, young lady." He opened the passenger door for her. "I'll take you home. It's not safe for a woman to walk alone in this darkness." Galia, without arguing, slid into the soft seat. The interior of the car smelled faintly of expensive cologne. The man got behind the wheel, started the engine, and they smoothly pulled away from the curb. Galia glanced nervously over her shoulder. Stas, who had apparently had one drink too many, was already dozing off, slumped against the seat and snoring lightly. Galia quickly glanced at her rescuer. Only now, in the light of the passing street lamps, did she notice his attractive masculine features. The man's inner confidence was reassuring. "Now, let me introduce myself," he began. "Sergei, the father of this misfortune." He gave a brief nod toward the sleeping son. "What's your name? Where can I take you?" She introduced herself and gave her address. "Please tell me what happened back there." His tone softened slightly. Galia shook her head, tears welling up in her eyes. Is this something that happens often? Sergei asked, casting a quick glance at her. Summoning her courage, Galia spoke about the constant harassment from the wealthy students, how they mocked her, laughed at her, and humiliated her. All because she was on a budget and didn't fit in with the golden youth. She mentioned how she and her father lived without her mother, and how, thanks to her gold medal in school, she had managed to get into a prestigious university. I understand. At the traffic light, Sergei glanced at her again. He shook his head, his eyes filled with silent regret. I'm ashamed of my son, Galia. Deeply ashamed. This won't happen again, I promise. Soon, they stopped in a residential area, in front of the gate of a modest, sturdy house. The windows glowed with a warm yellow light. I'm sorry once more, Galia, for what happened today, Sergei said. Tomorrow I'll come by, speak with your father, and do my best to make up for my foolish son. He paused, then added with a sigh. Unfortunately, he still doesn't get it, Galia asked in surprise. You'll come tomorrow at 11? Yes, that's right, he confirmed with a friendly smile. Go on now, it's late. Without finding the words to argue with this dignified man, Galia stepped out of the car and hurried to the gate, feeling a mixture of nervousness, embarrassment, and a strange sense of relief after her encounter with Sergei. Saturday morning greeted Galia with hustle and anxiety. Just the day before, she had told her father about the incident near the university. Her father, a practical man and simple plumber, was intrigued by Sergei's resolve. At 11 sang, the same imposing car pulled up in front of their house. Sergei stepped out, carrying a large bouquet of autumn chrysanthemums and a bulky bag with the logo of an expensive store. Good afternoon. Sergei stepped in and immediately handed the bouquet to the flustered girl. Then, introducing himself briefly, shook her father's hand firmly with a strong, masculine grip. Please come in, Sergei. It's a shame when children go off course. Her father sighed, letting the guest into the small, tidy kitchen. Sergei set the delicacies from his bag on the table. Expensive sausage, cheese, and fruits. Galia awkwardly bustled about, trying to tidy everything up. Really, Sergei? You shouldn't have, Galia exclaimed. I should have. Galia, you're a wonderful young woman, and I'm ashamed of my son, the fool who can't see that. One day he'll grow up and understand, he said, inhaling deeply, taking in the scent of the freshly made meat broth. It smells delicious. Her father pulled out a couple of shot glasses. Galia's just about finished with lunch. Her borscht is exceptional. I hope you won't refuse to join us, Sergei. With pleasure, the man replied, his eyes shining with genuine warmth. Her father poured into both glasses. Galia sliced several thick pieces of homemade bread and placed them on a plate alongside some lard. Her father and Sergei clinked their glasses and drank to the new acquaintance. Her father cleared his throat and retrieved a large jar of pickled deer meat from the fridge. Sensing the atmosphere warming, Galia moved easily and gracefully around the kitchen, fluttering about like a butterfly. Behind her, she heard another toast. To children, Sergei. May they grow wiser. Taking a bite of the crispy, fragrant cucumber, Sergei praised her. Your daughter is a wonderful housekeeper. She manages her studies and keeps your home in order. He then added with a bitter smile. As for mine, all he does is waste money. He's nothing but trouble. And at home there's emptiness. No woman's hand, no warmth. Sergei sighed. Here I am, sitting with you, and I'm amazed at how cozy it is. It's been a long time since I felt this at ease. Simple, human. The men fell silent, and Galia turned to them. Both were looking at her with warm smiles. Her father spoke up. My girl is a treasure. Since her mother passed away, she's become the real keeper of the house. She even graduated from music school, can you imagine? Galia tried to change the subject. The meat broth is ready. I'll make the sauté, then just need to boil the cabbage and potatoes, and that's it. Then, unexpectedly, with a spark in her eyes, she asked, Sergei, would you mind helping me chop the vegetables? He was genuinely surprised. I haven't peeled anything in ages, except for mandarins. Well, it's time to remember. Galia smiled, handing him a knife. Here's the cabbage. You need to cut the head in half, Remove the core, and then slice it thinly for speed. I'll peel the potatoes in the meantime. Sergei began chopping the large cabbage head. Galya, meanwhile, quickly and methodically peeled the potatoes, dropping them into a bowl of water. As they worked, the conversation flowed easily. The men joked and laughed. The bright sound of Galya's laughter echoed in the kitchen. Her father was asking something, and Sergei was answering. Galya listened to their conversation, feeling something warm and bright stirring inside her. Sergei was strong, reliable, gallant, and yet completely unpretentious about his position. He seemed like an ordinary man who simply lacked the comfort of a home. After lunch, during which Sergei ate 2 full plates of the exquisite borscht, her father gave her a sly wink and said, "Daughter, play us something." Galya blushed, but nodded. She brought her guitar from the room. Her fingers, accustomed to the strings, quickly found the right chords. She closed her eyes and sang a tender lyrical song of her own composition. Her voice was pleasant, clear, and soothing. Sergei, forgetting everything else, leaned on the table, watching her intently. His gaze softened, growing thoughtful. What was he thinking in that moment? Perhaps about the remarkable young woman who was filling this small, humble kitchen with warmth and comfort. When the song ended, Sergei was the first to clap, and her father quickly wiped away the tears that had suddenly welled up in his eyes. "Bravo, Galya," Sergei exclaimed. His voice trembled with emotion. He winked playfully at her. "If I were at least 10 years younger, I'd definitely marry you." Galya instantly blushed, embarrassed. Her heart began to race. She didn't yet realize that her feelings for this strong, gallant man had already grown into something more. The autumn sun shone brightly, flooding the courtyard with a soft light. "Thank you for the warm welcome," Sergei said sincerely, shaking her father's hand at the gate. "If you ever need anything, any help at all, don't hesitate to call. I'll be there." "You're welcome any time, Sergei," her father replied, patting him on the shoulder. A month passed. Life returned to its usual rhythm. During the day, Galya attended lectures, and in the evenings, she took care of household chores and her father. Stas and his gang stopped bothering her, and if they passed by, they ignored her. It seemed that her father's words had made an impact. Galya stopped thinking about Sergei, brushing off their warm encounter as a pleasant but random memory. But one evening, disaster struck. While working on an emergency call, her father fell into a sewage collector filled with icy water. By some miracle, he managed to escape, but due to severe hypothermia and injury, he lost the use of his legs. The man was bedridden. His recovery was agonizingly slow. Galya had to pay for expensive medication and arrange for a caregiver for a few hours each day while she was at university. Soon they could hardly afford food. Each day, it became harder for Galya to bear the pain and despair in her father's eyes. And one day, sitting beside her father's bed, Galya hesitantly said, "Dad, remember how Sergei offered to help? Maybe I should call him?" Her father sighed heavily. "Oh, daughter, debts. I don't like that." He fell silent, feeling his helplessness. "Do what you think is best," since he offered himself. The next day, summoning her courage, Galya called the number Sergei had left. "Galya?" His voice was filled with genuine surprise and joy. "What happened?" Galya explained the situation with her father. Sergei listened carefully and said, "Good for you for calling. Send me the doctor's appointments. I'll come by today." Sergei arrived that same evening. He brought not only groceries and expensive medications, but also money, which he placed on her father's bedside table. They spoke briefly, and then Sergei left the room. Galya heard her father's grateful voice. "Thank you, Sergei. I'll make sure to pay you back as soon as I can work again." At the door, Galya stopped Sergei. "I don't know how to thank you for your kindness," she said. She wanted to express the overwhelming gratitude she felt. Sergei looked at her kindly and paused for a moment before replying, "I think I know how. My mother's anniversary is coming up. She loves poetry and music. Come play and sing for her. That would be the best thank you for me, and a real celebration for her." Galya, surprised by such a simple yet sincere request, nodded in agreement. On the appointed day, Galya arrived in the suburbs at the given address, taking a taxi sent by Sergei. As the gates opened automatically, she was greeted by an enormous, impressive country house, surrounded by a meticulously landscaped park, manicured lawns, gleaming streetlights, and expensive finishes. Everything about the place spoke of incredible wealth. The car stopped in front of the porch, and Sergei stepped out to meet her. He was dressed in a modest suit that made him appear even more solid and imposing. The homeowner greeted the shy girl with such joy, as though he had been waiting for her for a lifetime. "Galia, I'm so glad you came," he said, smiling warmly. "Come in." She entered the house. High ceilings, large windows, expensive furniture, and antiques. Everything seemed like it came from another, unreachable world, and it left her deeply stunned. She felt uncomfortable. In her small home, where every item was familiar, she felt confident. But here, in this splendor, she felt completely out of place. In the living room, about 10 guests had already gathered. Stas glanced at his classmate with indifference. Sergei introduced Galia to the guests and his mother, an elderly, elegant lady sitting in a chair. "Mother, this is Galia, a young, talented poetess and guitarist. To my great joy, she agreed to sing for us," Sergei announced proudly. Galia, summoning all her courage, sat on a chair in front of the guests. At first, she felt stiff, but as soon as her fingers touched the strings, all her discomfort vanished. She began singing her own poems, the ones she had sung in the cozy kitchen at home. The song was about hope, simple happiness, love, the kind that was more important than any wealth. Her pure, sincere voice, filled with warmth and poignant openness, captivated everyone. The guests held their breath. Sergei's mother listened, pressing a lace handkerchief to her lips, tears running down her cheeks as if she were recalling her own youth. When Galia finished singing, the room fell silent, and then thunderous applause erupted. It seemed that Sergei was the most delighted of all. His eyes were shining, and he didn't take his eyes off Galia for a moment. The anniversary celebration continued, but Galia felt out of place. When she asked for a taxi, Sergei seemed disappointed, but went to see her to the car. They stepped into the quiet, dark park. Standing under the starry sky, Sergei took her hand. His voice was deep and serious. "The way you sang, it was magnificent. My mother hasn't cried like that in a long time. To be honest, even I've got tears in my eyes. And you know it's not that easy to move me." He paused. His strong hand gently tightened around hers. "You know, ever since the first time I visited you, I've been thinking about you constantly. Every meeting with you is a real celebration for me." The girl couldn't bring herself to look at him. She thanked God for the darkness around them, grateful that he couldn't see how red she had become from embarrassment. "I understand the difference in age, my status," he continued, "but I'm willing to disregard all of that. I want to court you, Galia, and if you accept my courtship, I'll be the happiest man in the world." Galia was completely stunned. The confession from this powerful, desirable man overwhelmed her. "Sergei," was all she managed to say. At that moment, a taxi pulled up. Sergei gently released her hand. "Think about it, Galia," he asked warmly. "I'll be waiting." Galia, unable to remain in the luxurious house any longer, quickly hopped into the taxi. The car carried her away from the sparkling mansion. She rode home in complete turmoil. Sergei's confession frightened her, but to be honest, his sincerity had touched her deeply. After that evening, Galia was consumed by a true inner storm. She constantly replayed the luxury of the country house, the delighted faces of the guests, and most importantly, Sergei's serious, hopeful expression. She was drawn to this reliable, gallant man who was so genuinely seeking simple warmth. But she was also frightened by his world. She felt like she wouldn't fit into that reality and would become just another beautiful, faceless object in his magnificent home. Sergei called and texted her several times. In her confusion, Galia didn't respond to either the calls or the messages. Each time, her hand would reach out to reply, but fear would freeze her at the last moment. What was she supposed to say? Galia sat in the university library, buried in textbooks, when suddenly Stas sat down at her table. He was alone and looked grim. "Listen, there's something I need to tell you," he said nervously, then fell silent, unable to continue. Galia looked at him in surprise, expecting yet another insult, but Stas just sighed heavily. "It's about my father," he said softly, leaning over the table to be closer. I've never seen him like this. He's been walking around like a storm cloud, silent, even stopped lecturing me. And yesterday he got drunk. I've only seen him like that once before, when he was getting divorced from my mom. Stas looked at Galia, and for the first time in all their interactions, she saw genuine concern in his eyes. He told me yesterday. Stas hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. He said he can't live without you. He asked me, "Can you imagine why she's rejecting me?" I told him, "Ask her yourself." And then he cried. Galia froze, stunned. She couldn't believe that this once arrogant guy was now revealing such deeply personal and intimate emotions, both his and his father's. "He's willing to throw everything at your feet," Stas said in a hushed tone. "And he only needs a little. Your gentle smile and the healing melody of your guitar." He paused for a moment, then confessed, "And you play amazingly well. It's incredible." It was an unexpected revelation. Galia realized that Sergei's feelings were indeed deep and pure, as they had moved even someone as cynical as Stas. He looked at her with hope in his eyes. Galia rushed home. Throwing her coat in the hallway, she ran to her father's room. He was lying in bed. "Dad!" Galia dropped onto the edge of his bed, her eyes shining. "I don't know what to do. My soul is torn." She started to speak breathlessly, telling him about her conversation with Stas, about Sergei's confession. "On one hand, I'm afraid of becoming a bird in a golden cage, you know? Afraid of being just an element of luxurious decor, becoming over time a talking trinket." She paused for a moment, her heart racing. "But on the other hand, Dad, I'm drawn to this man. I feel his warmth." Her father took her hand in his. "Daughter," he said calmly and gently, "do you love him? Just answer to yourself yes or no." Galia closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and exhaled. She no longer doubted. "I love him," she said, her voice firm and resolute. Her father smiled, and a glint of joy flashed in his eyes. "Then go to the kitchen and tell him that yourself." Galia froze. Her heart skipped a beat. "Who?" she whispered, not believing her ears. Slowly, as if her legs were made of jelly, she walked to the kitchen and froze in the doorway. Sergei was sitting at their little kitchen table. He was waiting for her. He immediately stood up, and out of nowhere he had a magnificent bouquet of flowers in his hands. Galia, I couldn't wait. I decided to come and talk to you in person," he said, his voice trembling. Galia swallowed hard. Sergei had evidently heard everything. His guilty smile and the sparkle in his eyes gave it away. He placed the bouquet on the table and walked toward her. "Galia." His voice was full of emotion. "Tell me, my dear, are you ready to accept my hand and my heart?" Galia looked at him. She gazed at his strong, masculine face, and all her doubts about this gallant, sturdy and strong man vanished. "Yes, Sergei," she answered confidently, and then, overcome with emotion and joy, she suddenly burst into tears. Soon after their conversation, Sergei helped arrange for Galia's father to be admitted to one of the best clinics. There, surrounded by professional care, her father quickly began to recover. Galia and Stas graduated from university, and Sergei made an official proposal to her. A year later, a proud father handed over his daughter's hand to her happy fiancé. Galia and Sergei now lived in his mansion, which over time became a cozy, beloved home. Galia's musical talent didn't fade away amid the routine of daily life. With her husband's support, Galia opened a recording studio, where she now helped young, talented musicians find their way. Engaging in music, she felt that she had truly realized herself. As time went on, Stas stopped causing trouble, but remained the same cheerful guy. Between the former classmates, an ironic yet friendly relationship developed. Galia often played and sang for her husband, seeing in his calm, life-worn gaze a reflection of her own happiness. She knew she hadn't made a mistake trusting this man, for she had found a real, loving, and warm family, and was doing what she loved. And let me know if you liked my story, and be sure to subscribe to our channel. A new story will be released in just a couple of days. Don't miss it.